Okay. So now we're on the next section. We've talked about what's new for us as accountants, consultants, bookkeepers. Now we're going to talk about what's new not only for us but also for our clients. So we'll start out with the Windows lineup of going through Pro Premier and Enterprise Solutions, and then we'll get into the other sections of QuickBooks Mac and things like that. You will notice if you've installed QuickBooks 2013 that the interface is a little bit different. What we're looking at here is something that's new called overlay tips. So when you start a new file, you're going to see these overlay tips, and it comes up when you open an area that has a new feature. And the good thing is you can click anywhere to dismiss it, and once you use that feature, it's going to disappear. Now you can bring it back by looking under your help menu and telling QuickBooks to bring it back. But the idea is especially for new users, kind of like what the QuickBooks Coach was before, but even for us who are switching from one version of QuickBooks to another, go ahead and tell me what's new in these different areas. And then once you tell me what's new and I use it, don't show me that again. So that's new, these overlay tips. Now, you will notice that the design, and you probably already noticed when Woody shared his screen, is that the design is a lot different. It's a lot more simplified. It's considered modern. It is nice and bright, where the icons are a little bit smaller, the font's a little bit bigger, so that it's easier to, in my mind, to follow the workflow by using the home page, and you'll see even on the particular transactions in the different areas. I think the whole idea is let's make it more clear. Let's not try and clutter up the screen. So some of the icons have been taken off the home page. Others just because they've made smaller and we have a lot more white space there. I think it's just easier to see and easier to follow what's going on. Then we also have something called the left navigation bar or the left icon bar. So this is this bar that you see to the left that can be minimized or not minimized. And it's an easy way to see what windows you have open, to see your shortcuts. So that one part of it is what used to be your icon bar across the top of the page. You can easily access any of your apps. I think as time goes on, more and more of us are using Intuit or third-party apps that integrate with our QuickBooks, so it's an easy place to go ahead and get there. One of the other things that was taken off the home page is our account balances, but we can access them from our left navigation bar. The other thing, again, in trying to keep you focused on whatever task is happening with you, is the way that you can maximize the view when you're in a particular transaction. So on our next screen, we're going to see the transaction ribbon bar, which I really like, which is a new feature. But sometimes it's, the transaction that we're working on is prime real estate, and we want to be able to look at that whole transaction or as much as we can of that transaction. So you can actually maximize that view by clicking a little button in the upper right-hand corner that I will show you, and then minimize the view and bring back the navigation bar and the ribbon bar, which I'm going to show you next on that. Now here is the ribbon bar, and the idea with the ribbon bar is that there was a lot of features that people weren't really aware of because they were not easily accessible. And the other thing that I found is that it wasn't consistent where you looked on a transaction to do a particular task. Like email and send were in the lower left-hand corner. Time and cost was in the lower right-hand corner. Printing and sending were across the top of, when we're talking about an invoice, on the top of the invoice. Wouldn't it be nice just to have everything all in one place, easy to access? Well, that's the idea with the transaction ribbon bar. On particular transactions, there are different tabs on the transaction ribbon bar that will let you know what you can do with that particular transaction that you are on. And I know there was one of the pro advisors who posted, when did they add the shipping manager? When did they add that you could ship with the USPS? Well, it's been in QuickBooks for a while, but if you didn't even know where to look for it, then you didn't know that it was there. So that being said, let's see if I can share today. So I have logged back in. I'm going to launch my screen share. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about, we're going to go home here. We have this what's new. Now, I've been in this file all over the place. So I actually had to go up to help on my menu bar and say that I wanted to see the what's new. Generally, when you're first in the file, it's just your overlay tips are going to come up, and you won't have to worry about it. And once I get somewhere, then I can just click it to dismiss, and it won't come up again. So, for example, when we're on the home page, it says, hey, check out the new icon bar. Want to change its location? See the view menu. Try new apps, and then click anywhere to dismiss. I open up an invoice. And it says, and again, yours would come up automatically. All of the invoice tasks are located right here, so it wants us to know about the transaction ribbon bar that we have. So it just is nice to be able to see what's new, especially in QuickBooks 2013 when we have such a different look and feel. Even though we still have the home page and we can find our way around, it's kind of nice to have Intuit point out to us those new features. Now, as we go back to the home page, again, I can't remember if Woody was on the home page when he was sharing his screen, but I really like the look and feel of this home page because it's nice and bright and easy to read. With my icons on there, it still gives me my workflow. And when I train clients, especially people who are new to QuickBooks, I train them using the home page because it's got that workflow there. And now I just think it's easier to read. And I will tell you, as a presenter, when I'm presenting live, when I'm projecting up on a big screen, this is so much easier for the participants to read because that blue background and the contrast between the background and the printing and the small fonts in QuickBooks 2012 and prior was really hard for participants to be able to read it from any distance. Now it's a lot easier to do that. And then on our left-hand side, you see that we have our left icon bar. So our left icon bar here, my shortcuts. So my shortcuts are what used to be the icon bar across the top of the page. And I said I would show you how you can put that icon bar across the top of the page. And you simply do that by going up to View on your top menu bar, clicking on Top Icon Bar, and now my icons are back. Now, what I don't like about that is I can't easily get to the App Center. There's other things that are on this left icon bar that are not on the top icon bar. So yes, I have my shortcuts, but look I have my apps here, which I don't have my apps on there. I have my to-dos today. I can also view the balances of whatever accounts that I have. And then I have something called my favorite reports, which I can run my favorite reports. So it just puts it all in one place. I like that I have the search box at the top of the page so I can search the company file. That was one of my favorite features when it came out. To me, it kind of snuck in, even though I teach what's new every year, when it came out a few years ago. And I always used to use Find. Now I use Search to search the company file, and it's right there. If my left icon bar is taking up too much space, I have a little collapse pane so I can collapse it. This is even outside of the maximizing our forms, which I'll show you again, but it kind of maximizes my home page to minimize my left icon bar, and then I just click on it again to open it up. Now let's talk about maximizing. Let's open up my invoice screen. Now right here, yes, I can minimize my left icon bar, and that gives me more space to look at my invoice. But I also have my transaction ribbon bar going up across the top of the page. So if I just click on this little double-sided cross arrows, I can maximize, and now it's full screen, and it makes it really easy to work in. And then when I want to put it back to what it was before, I have my little down arrow where it says Restore Work Area, and then I can restore the work area, and then my transaction ribbon bar comes across the top of the page. So let's move on to talking about the transaction ribbon bar. We're going to have it at the top of our forms, and the invoice one probably has the most tabs on it because there's lots of things that you can do with the invoice. So when you look across the top of your transaction ribbon bar, we have main, we have formatting, we have send ship, we have reports. So on our main, we can do our previous and next, or we can find. I mean, it kind of makes sense now the way that it's lined up, because before we had previous and next, but find was somewhere else off to the right. We can create a new. We can save it either as save the invoice or save it as a PDF. We can delete it or void it right from our delete drop-down menu. We can create a copy. There was a lot of people who didn't know you could duplicate an invoice and create another one from the one that you're on. You can memorize. You can mark as pending, which you used to have to go up to the edit menu and come down and mark as pending. You can print it, and you see you have all sorts of choices here when you're printing. You can email it, invoice or batch. And then your print later or email later, rather than being at the bottom left-hand corner, now is up at the top. All my choices are here up at the top. My attached docs, my add time and costs, and then up here, what can I do with this invoice? I can receive payments. I can do my batch invoicing. I can create that refund or credit. And then we have this online pay drop-down menu if we had that turned on. Now that's just one tab. And it is the main one. It's called main for a reason. It is the main one. But when I click on my formatting tab, this is where I'm going to manage my templates, where I can do spell check. I can insert or delete a line. Again, I know my keyboard shortcuts for inserting or deleting, but before I had to go, if I didn't use my keyboard shortcut, I had to go to the top menu bar to insert or delete, and then customize my design. There's a shipping manager in QuickBooks, so I can easily set up my shipping right here from my Send Ship tab. And then my last tab here are my reports, so I can look at the transaction history. I can look at the transaction journal for this particular invoice. I can get a quick report. And that's just on invoices. So let's look at enter bills and see what our choices are when we open up our enter bill screen. Again, on our main, the things that are important: previous, next, find, new, save, delete, create a copy, memorize, print, attach a file, select a PO, clear the splits, recalculate, pay the bill. And again, if I want to maximize this, I don't need that transaction ribbon bar. I can maximize my work area and then bring it back down again if I need to. If I want to just not see the ribbon bar, I have this little up and down arrow key up next to my maximize and minimize that will go ahead and just get rid of the ribbon bar and then move from there. So that's a pretty nice feature. I think all of these new features are pretty helpful. I'm going to stop my screen sharing and move on to the next screen, which is to see if there's any Q&A related to our new design features.
Sure. Yeah. So a lot of people are asking about the open window list. If you're in the left navigation panel, where is it? How do you access it?
Okay, good question. So let me just turn my screen share on again.
Okay. So remember, folks, to click, the connect, unless it already automatically connects to you, which it did for me. But if you have to click connect, click that. I can see it fine. Yeah, if you move it up, you see that split line right below the shortcuts, right above it. I'm sorry. You see the little the ellipsis.
Yep.
Yeah, move that up. Just push it up, and open windows will show up. There you're going down. Go up. There it is. Yeah, so down on the left.
Right, so that's a really good point, Woody, is that, I can minimize this or maximize what I'm seeing. And you're right, I love the open windows list, so we need to have that there.
Yeah, and if someone really wants the open window list on the left, it is on the left, because even when you collapse, can you collapse it now, MB, the panel? Just collapse it to like it's a border. which I like, and I've been using it a lot this way. You can just scroll over open windows and click on it and then just click on them. So, and then you can do it that way. Or if you really love the old school open window list, you have to have the top icon bar. And then you can add the open window list.
I can click on my top icon bar, and then I can have my open windows list open.
Exactly.
But I think that the fact that you have so many options here.
Yeah, the left nav panel, or left icon bar, whatever, does have more options, particularly having a section for your favorite reports. I like that.
Right.
You know.
Right, that's a cool feature.
So, and I wanted to mention, too, this leads in another question, you know, for the folks that just don't like the dark gray, or we're getting some, you know, questions on how do I change the coloring to the top icon bar, how do I change the color of the icons on the home page. You can't change the color of the icons on the home page, nor can you change the white to anything else. And also, what about the color flags for, or my themes for different files? So, although I can't commit to anything, I know coming, but based on feedback, you will have an option to not have a dark colored top icon bar. You could have a regular, you know, lighter color with colored icons on the icon bar if you like that. The way to differentiate company files, we will have the option of 13 different colored flags you can put in the top right of the file so that your client will know which one they're in or which they're not in. But, you know, we're not going to return to the Desert Isle or Summer Linen, you know, or those ones. I miss Desert Isle myself, but those themes are going to be gone in the preferences. But you will see in the later releases some other color options for those that love the top icon bar, but it's hard to work with the dark gray or what have you. So we're going to answer that soon.
Right. You know, I think
also,
it's funny because people do use different colors for different company files, and I understand that, but they have not changed since whenever they first came out, which was probably like the first version of Windows. You know, Denim Blues and Rose Ribbon and Desert Isle. I mean, Summer Linen or something like that.
Right.
They were pretty boring colors.
Oh, I love Desert Isle, but still. Can you customize an invoice? Someone want to know, where do you go to customize an invoice? Because again, we've moved it under the formatting drop-down menu. So can you bring up an invoice quick and then, yeah. It's there.
So here's your manager template.
Yeah. Exactly.
Again, you can get to it from your lists and your template lists like you always could, but you're right here, you know, customize. Oh, this is a pre-printed form one, so I would have to make a copy. But you can get to manage your templates right from this screen here.
Oh, here's a good question. Yeah, very good. MB. So, and even people don't even know there's a shipping manager in QuickBooks. So you'll see that under the Send Ship. So if you can't find it, look at the menu above, Main Formatting, Send Ship Reports. Every transaction will have a kind of a menu. Bill has like Main and Reports or something. So this is an interesting question. Are we ever going to be able to have more than one company file open at a time? This person must not be using Account Edition or the Enterprise. The last 2 years, though, you've been able to have at least two. Up to two, right, MB?
Right. So if you're using QuickBooks Accountant or you're using any version of QuickBooks Enterprise, you can have two files open at the same time. So if you're not using QuickBooks Accountant, then who knows what they'll do in the future.
Well, Bookkeeper, too, supports multi-instance.
And Bookkeeper,
so Bookkeeper as well. And we've had that for about 3 years, 11, 12, and 13. So if you're in Pro or a non-accountant, you know, and we came out with Bookkeeper last year, so if you're still using, say, 2011 Premier Contractor, you'll only be in one file. So the others will have it. Good. That's all the questions. Did you go over the Customer Center or anything?
Not yet.
Okay, so that's later. Okay, someone asked where they couldn't find the notes section. They want to know if the notes were gone, but they're still there. We just moved them.
Oh man, notes are so cool. So let's move on to the next section, and you will be able to see what's going on. Okay. So our next section, we're going to talk about just other features. So we kind of broke out what's new for you and your clients into a couple different sections. And one of the things that's new is time and expenses preferences. Now, we have never on time been able to say whether something was billable or not, right? Whether we wanted to invoice our clients or our customers or not. And what I thought was interesting is that if I was entering time for an employee, then it would always be marked as billable and I'd have to uncheck it. But if I was entering time for a vendor, it was never marked billable, and I would have to go back and mark it billable if I wanted to invoice my client for that time. When we were entering on the expenses tab, if we put in a customer name, it was automatic. So expenses tab on like a credit card charge, a check, or a bill, it would automatically be marked as billable if we were adding a customer. So what's new in QuickBooks 2013 is the preference for both time and expenses to either say they're billable or not billable, and then which you would do for whatever it is the majority of the time, and yet you can override it on a particular transaction or a particular line number, a line on a transaction. And I'll demo how that works when we get into the demo part of this. Now, the other thing I think is great, along with this new, modernized look, is the idea of the new centers. So the centers are the same as far as on the left-hand side you have a listing. That's where your customer list is, your vendor list, your employee list. On the right-hand side, though, you not only have your customer information at the top of the page, but the bottom of the page is broken out into different tabs so that you can see more information without having to actually edit the customer, and it's just a lot more organized than it ever was before. Now, the other cool thing when we're talking about our contacts in the center, and again, I'll demo this in a minute, is that we now have not only the ability to track multiple contacts, so rather than just having contact and alternate contact, phone number, alternate phone number, one email field, we now have 9 or 10 different fields, and we can identify the type of data that we're entering. So we can say whether it's a mobile phone. We can say whether it's an email address or their website or whatever we want to type in there. The drop-down list, I think it also has like LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter on there, but which you might not use, but it's really nice to be able to track multiple contacts and then be able to track the data that is related to that. Now, before we get into our demo, I want to talk about some other kind of cool features that we don't have slide shots on, but I may show you when we get into the demo. And some of these may be really important to you. So one of the things we can do is we can print vendor bills. And you may ask, well, why would I want to print a vendor bill? I mean, if I have the actual bill from the vendor, why do I need to print the vendor bill from QuickBooks? Well, maybe you have an intercompany and you need to know where it's posting, or you just want the information that you enter on the bill in QuickBooks, not just the vendor name and the dollar amount and the amount of the bill. I want to know what expense account it posted to. I want to know if it went to a customer, things like that. I can actually print that vendor bill now in QuickBooks 2013. If you are using the Intuit Payment Network, which I highly recommend everybody do because it's kind of a no-brainer, with the Intuit Payment Network, it's a way that we can get paid by our customers or our clients, where if they pay by ACH, it's a 50-cent transaction, a 50-cent fee to us. But we can also accept credit cards through Intuit Payment Network, where we pay, I think the going rate now is 3.25%. Without having a merchant service account. So if you have people who just pay occasionally, you might not need to sign up for a merchant service account because you can use the Intuit Payment Network. Well, what's new in QuickBooks 2013 related to the Intuit Payment Network is globally you can say, I only want to accept ACHs, or I want to be able to accept ACHs and credit cards. Not only that, I can then go into my customers and identify on the customer level whether I want to accept ACHs or ACHs and credit cards. Not only that, I can go down to the transaction level and on a transaction-by-transaction basis identify whether I want to just accept ACH or ACH and credit card. My feeling is, and I've been using merchant services forever, is that I would rather get paid, and I'd rather get paid faster than have to make those collections calls and go chasing after my clients trying to get them to pay me. And that if they can pay me by credit card, they pay me right away. So again, that's something that's new, is the ability to assign that default payment method. There is also a really neat reporting preference for item-based reports so that you can turn the preference on to not only show the item name but also the item description. And I like this because I have a lot of clients who are manufacturers and their item name is actually the part number. But if you're not familiar with all the part numbers, you don't know what the part is. You want that description on there. And on your inventory reports or your summary-based reports, even if they're item-based reports, you're just going to see the item name. You won't be able to see the item description. Well, you now can set a preference to show the description, the item description, as well as the item name. I also have clients who are contractors, so their item name for list purposes correspond with the contractor codes, 12A, 12B, 12C. I don't know what 12A is. Well, that's equipment. 12B is materials. 12C is something else. Wouldn't it be nice to have the description be able to show up on the report? So we can do that. We can also hide the zero quantity on inventory reports. So you have, 2,000 items in inventory. You have 2,000 inventory items on your items list. Only 50 of them have quantity in there. I'd like to get rid of, not show up without bringing it into Excel, those that have no quantity. If you are using QuickBooks 2013 Maintenance Release 3, so the latest maintenance release, you can hide the zero quantity. There's also some cool new features on the inventory reorder points where it calculates the reorder reports, calculates on the quantity available rather than the quantity on hand. So it takes into account things like that are on sales orders, that are on pending bills to try and determine how many you need to reorder. One of the cool new features is the group item, where in the past you could only have 20 items in a group. Now you can have up to 50 items in a group, and that's in Pro and above. And then this collapse, your reports, it came out in the Plus version. So Plus version meaning you're kind of paying a subscription for your QuickBooks. If you're a Pro advisor, you have the Plus version, and that means with the maintenance release, they may actually put in additional features that people who are not on Plus are not seeing until they buy the next release of QuickBooks. But it came out in QuickBooks 2013. Now, again, think about it. In prior versions of QuickBooks, let's say I'm on a P&L and I have parent accounts and sub-accounts of my sub-accounts. I do have a collapse and expand button on the top of my P&L, but it is going to roll everything up into the parent accounts. What if I only want to collapse the sub-accounts of the sub-accounts? Well, I couldn't do that in prior versions of QuickBooks, but we can now do that in QuickBooks 2013. So that's something that's new for us and for our clients. If I install the latest release update in my office, do my clients also have to have updated to use the accountant transfer option? So, Teresa, if you're asking about the accountant's copy, it's 1 year backward compatible. So if they're on 2012, you can be on 2013, and they can still create an accountant's copy for you. Don asks what the Plus version is. So the Plus version is kind of a subscription base. And again, Don, if you're a Pro Advisor, as part of your Pro Advisor membership, you get the Plus version. And basically, it's for the people, I guess, are they paying monthly? They're paying a subscription, and when the maintenance releases come out, it may add new features that if you're not on the Plus version, you have to wait till the new version comes out. Patrick has auto dealer for a client. They use Reynolds and Reynolds. I'd love to be able just to put their trial balance in each year without any transactions. What I will tell you, Patrick, not anything related to what we're covering today, but if you can get that, if you can, I don't know that you really want to put the trial balance in unless you're starting a new QuickBooks file every year or removing transactions, but if you could just get a summary of all the transactions into Excel. You can't use batch enter transactions for that, but you could use other third-party software like Bay-State Consulting's Transaction Pro Importer to import that into QuickBooks. And we're going to talk about what's new in QuickBooks Enterprise Solutions. So the first thing, which is a really kind of cool thing that you can do in QuickBooks Enterprise Solutions, is that it has the ability to assign a default class to either items, accounts, or names. So not all three of them, but you can toggle back and forth, but items, accounts, or names. Now, to me, it doesn't make as much sense for accounts because the reason we're doing class tracking is to keep the chart of accounts small and much more manageable. But it does, to me, make sense to me to assign a class to a name or to an item. So when it's this vendor, it always goes to my overhead class. When it's this vendor, it always goes to my construction class, or it goes to my professional services class. Or an item. When I purchase this, it always goes to a certain class. So, again, we're in Enterprise Solutions 13.0. We can set up that default class, and then when we enter the transaction, like we enter an item on a transaction or we enter a name on a transaction, then the class will automatically be assigned. It does not mean that I cannot overwrite it, because I will be able to, but just like the vendor prefill for accounts that we've had for a couple of years in QuickBooks, it's just nice to have that fill in because most of the time, hopefully, I won't have to overwrite it and it will automatically be filled in for me. Now, the next new feature that we have in QuickBooks Enterprise Solutions is the ability to automatically create purchase orders. So the idea with this is to pull up the inventory stock status report, and we can either show it by, again, quantity available or quantity on hand, and then you see that little pink thing at the top of the screen. It says create the purchase orders. So what happens when you automatically create the purchase order, again, you want to make sure your reorder points are set up so it knows whether you need to reorder something, is it will list out all of the items that you need to reorder with the preferred vendor, and then it will tell you the quantity that you have, the quantity on the what your reorder point is, and then the very right-hand column, you have to say what you want to order. Now, I know that there have been some comments on that, but the thing is QuickBooks doesn't know how many you need to reorder. Maybe you have a minimum of 500 with that particular vendor. Or you get a price break at a certain point with a vendor. So you're going to type in how many you're going to order, and what QuickBooks will do on this auto create purchase orders is it will then take all the line items and create a purchase order per vendor. So if I'm looking on this screen and I have 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 or 20 items that I need to reorder, that I put in a quantity for, that all are the same vendor, it's going to create one purchase order for the vendor with all those line items on there. So that's pretty cool. Now, if sometimes you order, or this time you need to order the same part from a couple different vendors, you're going to have to create 2 auto purchase orders if you need to split that one item between vendors, because this is not an enterable screen at this point when we're looking, except for putting in the amount that we want to order. Nice feature, though. Now, the other thing in Enterprise, and I haven't talked to the Intuit programmers to find out why they did this, but they did increase the list. And look at this. Aren't we lucky? The chart of accounts can go from 10,000 chart of accounts to 100,000 chart of accounts. How exciting is that? We should have a poll question on that one. I think if I had a client who even had 10,000 accounts on my chart of accounts, I'd fire them. That's way too many accounts.
Right.
I'm actually came right before this session from a client that has about 22 pages on their current chart of accounts, and we're switching them from this Microsoft Dynamics system into QuickBooks, and we're probably going to 2 pages of the chart of accounts. Because the whole idea, I think, is to keep your chart of accounts as simple as possible. So I really don't know what the reasoning behind saying that you could have 100,000 chart of accounts are. But anyways, these list limits have increased. The to-dos have increased, which I think is nice because now we can create, even more to-dos and more notes. And really the most important one to me on this screen is the bottom one, which is not enterprise only, so anything kind of above the line, starting with the blue and white striped lines, is enterprise only. But the one that's for Pro and Premier and Enterprise is this increase in the number of items that I can have in a group, either a regular group item or a sales tax group item. And that's going from 20 to 50, which is pretty cool. Now, let me go back and see if there's any questions related to this section. So Rose asked, can payroll items be automatically assigned to a class? That may be the next thing, Rose. That's a great question. That's great feedback to give into it. That at this point, I haven't tested it in Enterprise, but my guess is the answer is no on that one.
No, right, not right now, right.
So if I forget to put in a class, can I set a default class? So that's the idea for, so maybe that's why you want to do it for accounts, right? But anyways, the answer is if you're talking about related to items, accounts, or names, and you're in QuickBooks Enterprise 13.0, then yes, you can set that default class, but not if you're in Pro or Premier.